I am Dee Dee Jones.
And I'm Stan Copeland, the pastor of Lovers Lane United Methodist Church in Dallas, Texas. And we have Brion Johnson on for a second time.
Yay!
We just had to have him back.
Yep.
His story is fascinating. It's in this book that's called My Inspirational Journey from Living on the Streets to Protecting Them, Reasons Beyond Myself. And we want to talk to him just about that today. We want to talk to him about his career in law enforcement and what led to that. Dee Dee, what do you want to ask Brion?
Well, I didn't get to meet you early on, so I've enjoyed this opportunity of getting to meet you now. So I want to know a little bit about your journey and where you are now. Mm-hmm. We learned a lot about where you were, where you came from, but I want to know more about where you are now. You're a policeman in Frisco, so yes, I want to know what that's like.
Oh my goodness. I always tell people there's a difference when you see it on TV or what you think an officer is going to be versus as to, actually being out there and you're like, oh my goodness, I'm really a cop right now. I'm still in shock right now. Like when people come up to me on the street, they're like, hey, Officer Sims. I'm like, who? I'm like, oh yeah, that's me. Yeah, so it's just crazy to be in this position. But yeah, I started my career off in 2015 with the Dallas Police Department.
Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, that was life changing. And now I'm with Frisco Police Department now.
So how have you seen that change your life? And what has your goal been in that from what you grew up?
Oh my goodness! So
and the way you grew up.
Yeah, I tell people that I didn't grow up as a storybook. Like I love police officers. I want to be one too.
They weren't your heroes.
Yeah, exactly. I wasn't really looking at police and you remember I grew up in the south side of St. Louis, so it was a rougher neighborhood. And the police during that time, not speaking about all police officers, but I had bad encounters with a few police officers out there, and not necessarily because I was doing something wrong. I was just, I guess, in a place where I got to see that officer kind of showcase who they were at that time. And there was a duo in St. Louis that made a negative impact on my life where these guys, talk bad about us, push me down to the ground, had me crying. I'm looking at police, and I'm like, whoa, as my first encounter with a cop, I'm like, this is not what I expected. So at that time, I said I couldn't imagine in a million years me ever wanting to be a police officer, ever stepping into that field to work with police. And obviously stuff is different now. Something happened that changed my life, but that was my initial take on officers. And then when I moved to Texas, when I made that shift, there was a night where I was living in Pleasant Grove at the time, and I was almost robbed for my Beats headphones. And there was two officers who stepped in the way and prevented that robbery from happening. And they didn't just stop it. They went out of their way to even say, hey man, we'll give you a ride back to the house. We want to make sure you're safe. So that was an eye-opening experience for me, because before that, I didn't see officers, in a great light. And then now here's two officers who are coming to me saying, we're not the same as those officers. And I'm like, so officers can be different. Officers are out here doing different things. And I knew I used those bad officers, and I'm glad they were actually in my life, because I saw the officer I didn't want to be. That's and how much a negative impact can affect, someone's life. And I wanted to be like those good officers and make a good impact. So I stepped into the role, put on the uniform, and I always say it was a heavy badge. And I always talk, it's a heavy badge. And I talk about the reflection of the badge and being who you want to see in the community. And so whoever you are inside is going to be reflected on that badge when you wear it. So, Yep.
Wow, that's so neat.
Yes, sir.
I'm amazed at the negative life experiences that you've had and how you have, through the strength of your character, have used those to not close the doors, but it's as if you have hope for being different or being the change in essence. And, from that bad experience with those cops in your early years, you didn't close the door on being a cop. And when that new experience came into your life, you shifted. When did you decide, though, that you wanted to go into law enforcement?
So I made that decision. I joined the Dallas Police Department in 2015, and I say that decision was very random too. I wish it was like a moment where, like a movie moment. I was like, yeah, I've been building up for this moment. I'm ready. Let's go. But I was in a parking garage on break from my job. I was working in childcare at the time, and I was like, you know what? it's time. It was just like, it was so random. I was eating a sandwich. I was like, I'm going to go down to the police department. And then I ended up signing up. I went down there. I was nervous out of my mind. I mean, it was just, I was like, am I doing the right thing? I don't know if I'm stepping into the right, I'm like, this is rough, choice. Because, officers, even during that time period, officers weren't really being looked at. The image was kind of changing on officers where, it was a negative light towards law enforcement. And it was a lot heavier. And you could see that during that time period with recruiting, too. The recruiting numbers from what law enforcement was versus to what it was when I was there, you could see the numbers dropping down fast. And so I stepped into something that was already controversial. And I was like, man, am I making the right decision? And I was like, no, if I don't step up, and that was my mindset, I always use that negative to boost me. I said, if I don't step up, who will? And so I stepped up, and that was a tough decision. That was tough, but it's obviously a blessing now. I can look back and say I'm very glad I would make that decision again to join law enforcement. But it was, I think life, and I always say that life during that time, sometimes it'll have you, God will put you through journeys in your life to strengthen you up for this moment. And so I think that when I went to the police academy and I made that decision, it wasn't my first time, being in those positions. It wasn't my first time being mentally tried, physically tried. It wasn't, I knew who I was at that point. He had strengthened me up enough to know that I possessed that strength and that courage and those factors to be an officer and be the best in that role.
Yeah. What do you like about it most now?
I would say that my community connection is the best thing. I love community relations more than anything because it gives me a chance to hear the side from the community and really repair that relationship. Because I tell officers, I speak to law enforcement too. I don't just speak to the community. I go to police departments and I speak to officers and I say the importance of having that community bond. Because if we don't have the community, because we are the community at the end of the day, and if we don't have that bond, it's going to make our job a whole lot tougher. And especially when no one wants to work with you, no one wants to help you, no one wants to be on that island of us and them. So I preach a lot of us. We're all in this together. So we're a family, we're a community. We have to figure this out. We have to get on the same page. So I go into that front line a lot of the times and I take some of those negative things that people, are expressing. And if they express it to me in a good light, I'm like, okay, I respect that more than anything because you're trying to have a conversation right now where I'm going to hear you out. So that's probably my favorite thing is just going out and doing events. We do a lot with I'm going to lose it, Boys and Girls Club. Boys and Girls Club. We have a shop with the cops. We have coffee with cops. We have, things. And I don't just...
Does that come with donuts?
It actually does. Yeah, it does. It does. Okay. We get offered that a lot, too. Yeah, some people are like, you sure you don't like the free coffee and donuts? I'm like, well, I mean, you can't. That's a good perk. I mean, no one's going to say no to that. But, yeah, it's just being able to go out there and connect with the community. That's, my favorite part of anything. And then know that you're making a difference. I have... kind of random people always say it's kind of scary sometimes where you have somebody random just run up to you and they're like, hey, you're Officer Sims, right? I'm like, oh man. I was like, what is this? And he's like, no, I want to say, man, thank you, man. You really helped me out that day. You talking to me. He said there was one guy, he was, drug addiction, different things like that. And he said, man, I was speaking to you and you giving me that assistance, I'm working again. I'm trying to get some help right now. He's like, but having that talk that you gave me meant the most to me. So, knowing that you're making an impact in someone's life is an incredible feeling because you never know.
Brion, I'm going to bring this up.
Yes, sir.
A few years ago, I think our country found itself as divided as I've ever witnessed it, and
for sure.
It came to rest really on George Floyd's death, at the hands of bad cops, basically, and we know that our law enforcement, that wasn't representative of our law enforcement. However, Black Lives Matter was born, which became very controversial. And then you had some, to some degree, backlash of, support the blue as if you can't do both. And here you are, a black man who's come through an incredible life experience that was not positive in all ways. And even with cops. And yet you made a choice to, I'm going to be part of the blue. Can you just elaborate a little bit on that? Had to go through your mind when you were making these choices?
Yes, I think you hit it right on the nail there. You were saying that, you know, as far as being a black male in a blue uniform, it goes, you know, it comes with its own list of issues and problems.
Right.
And I actually spoke about this in a video before about being black and in blue. And I speak about those challenges, you know, as far as, you know, recruiting, you know, black males, black females to go into the profession, because during that time period where a lot of incidents were going on, there was a lot of media, there was a lot of negative media towards us, and eyes were put on me. There was calls I was responding to on the police force that it would be a split thing. Like, they'll see me, like, it could be, you know, a black family and, you know, white officers. And they will say, you know, as soon as I get there, the officers are saying, you know, I'm glad you're here, man. You can probably create some peace here. And then they're saying, well, I'm glad he's here. He can take ours, you know. So it was like this split in both sides, you know. Me going there, I'm like, and I'm having to, you know, talk to both sides. And it really was split into like us and them at that time period. And then for me, it was like I was seen as, you know, a sellout, traitor, you know, because I had chosen to put on a blue uniform. And people were yelling at these things at me. They didn't know anything about me, know anything about my background. There was a point where I remember in one shift, I was called the N-word in the beginning of a shift by an older white male, and I was called the Uncle Tom and a sellout by a younger black female.
In the same shift.
In the same day, same shift. And I remember in either one of these calls, I had barely stepped a foot into the room. I didn't even say anything. Like, I had but me being there provoked that enough to say those things. So people will look at me and say, man, well, some people are like, well, you signed up for it, so we don't feel bad for you. I'm like, that's fine. That's perfectly fine. I was like, but some people ask me, why are you still in that position? If you're getting all this negative, like, comments, people are upset with you because you're not taking sides, you're not doing this, you're putting on a uniform. I say, I don't do this necessarily for people who want to say those negative things, who want to come at me with controversy. I do this for people who need to see me out there, who want to see me out there, who are proud to see me, because I can't tell you how many families, like white, black, Hispanic, every different race, to come up to me and say, man, we are happy to see you in this community, and we are happy to see you in this uniform, and we're happy that you're stepping up past the controversy and you're deciding to be there, because kids are looking up to me, people are looking up to me and saying, you're holding the example of who you need to be. When times get hard, it's not a time to back out and say, because anyone can do it when times are fun and good, right? And then you're getting all the love, but you really see who needs to be there, who wants to be there when times get hard and that those knobs get turned. And so when I was there and all of this was going on, I stayed to myself. I said, I'm here because I believe, and this is my strong faith that I have, with God wants me here. He wants me here. He's led me to this position. And I'm not someone who's going to back down and fold from that. And so I know I need to be here because there's people who want to see me here. That's what I'm doing.
And in my thought on that is there are people who need you there.
Yes. Absolutely.
Because there are people that it may not be the exact same story as yours, but they have a story that is like yours, where it feels like it keeps spiraling. Because I think that's the word you used on our first show is that it keeps spiraling for them. But someone like you in the position that you're in brings hope. It brings hope. And in this world today, that's what we need. We need hope.
Yeah, I want to say we need you there.
Absolutely.
You are a hope connection. You're the personification of a hope connection. And, Brion, I've known you a long time. I mean, you've... from the very beginning days of your connecting here, people were impressed with you, your personality, your character. I know that the colleagues you work with probably see you in that same light. Absolutely. But God's got his hand on you. And you've made these choices and come through things for something very powerful. And you don't know what that is. I don't know what that is. Now, Dee Dee may. She's pretty connected. But I'm just so excited for you. I'm excited for us. I'm excited for our larger, greater Dallas area community, Frisco in particular, that we have you serving in this capacity. Now, I want to end this show by going back to Emerson.
Okay.
Yes.
You're a good-looking young man, son. When you see him as his dad, what do you think of your hope for Emerson?
My biggest hope for his life is to have opportunities in a future that I didn't growing up, and things that were taken away from me, things that were, taken away from my vision, basically, where I didn't believe that I could do this because I didn't have the resources, I didn't have the personnel, I didn't have anything in my life to that extent to make it a better future. So for my son, I want him to see the future through different eyes, and let him know that nothing's holding him back. You are worth it. Even if you have an Uncle Jimmy in your life, you have a Brion Sims-Johnson as your dad, who's going to outvoice this guy and say, man, listen, I believe in you. Just know that those people in the world are always going to be there, but your future is whatever you want to make it. And you need to be bigger than what I did, more than what I did, because you have the opportunity to take those steps further than what I did. So that's my biggest thing for him. I want him to have a bright future. I want him to look at it and know that nothing's holding him back. He's incredible. We're all incredible. We're all blessed. God is on our side, and who won't stand against us, right? So that's what I want.
And God created him on purpose.
Yes, exactly.
And God created him on purpose.
He gave me his daddy.
Yeah.
He gave me as his daddy. So
that's right.
That's gonna be
Well, he's gonna be very proud of you.
Absolutely.
And not only can he read his daddy's story, but he can see his daddy's life and the influence you're gonna make. Going to be awfully similar to the influence your brother made in your life. And I know you dedicated this book to him.
Yes.
And so God bless you for being with us, Brion. I want to say to all of you, thank you for coming online with us. And Brion Sims-Johnson, you're a hero in my book.
Absolutely.
And thanks for being that hope connection that we all need. Thank you.